I thought about starting a new series on opening this time. I would like to investigate a bit more of Sicilian Defence for black because I think this is going to be my main opening choice in the following months because I'm going to play in some leagues and so forth. And I have to prepare a rather good repertoire with black pieces with the Sicilian, so I thought I might share some with you. So Sicilian Defence arises after the moves e4, c5, and black's objective is to take control of the d4 square, so that if white plays d4 immediately and aims to take over the center, which is, as I said, important, you can simply take this pawn, and if white ever recaptures with a queen, you are allowed to develop your knight with a tempo. So that would be a pretty good position for black. After, let's say, white queen retreats, you can just play e5 and the position is very good. You already equalized because you developed your knight. You don't have any problems with the future deployment of your pieces, so that would be a very good position. That's why if white attempts to play the so-called open Sicilian with a d4, then he usually plays knight f3, supporting d4. Of course, there are other lines that I will not cover in today's video, but just for you to know, there is a popular f4 line, as well as knight c3, the closed Sicilian, and of course there are some lines with c3. This is the Alapin Sicilian, and there is also a gambit with d4 taking and then offering another pawn. This is called I don't remember the name of the gambit, but it's quite strong and I will discuss it in another video. But in this one we will focus on one of the main lines. After knight f3 we play the move d6. Why do we play the move d6? Well, we would like to develop our knight to f6, but it's not so easy to do, because if we play knight f6 now, it could be kicked with a move pawn to e5, and now the knight needs to find a new home. Of course, it is possible to play this way, but most people do not like getting their knights harassed around the board, so that's why we don't play it. And we play d6 in order that after maybe white develops the knight, we develop our knight, and now if this pawn is pushed to kick our knight, then we are able to take it and the knight recaptures and our knight does not need to find a new home. So d6 is logical, and what white usually plays in this position is the move d4, because now it's available, because now after you take it and the knight takes back, there is no gaining of a tempo with the move knight to c6. I mean, white can just ignore that because the knight is protected. So that's rather reasonable. But in many cases, white will avoid playing the main line with the move d4, and they would instead go for the more calm variations, but less common ones as well, and they play bishop to b5 check. Now, it has a couple of ideas in mind. Oftentimes in the Sicilians this bishop is not a very good piece unless you maybe develop it to c4, as I will maybe show in the following videos. But this move forces an exchange of pieces if white wishes so. And the move knight to c6 has been commonly played, and in the long run it possibly so bishop takes knight, possibly, and pawn takes pawn. This is a possibility to damage black structure in the long run, which could be advantageous for white. Also, if black plays bishop d7, then oftentimes white takes the initiative because, well, black has nothing developed. And now, well, oftentimes they could build some initiative with a move like c3 and d4. For instance, if we just continue with the normal moves after knight f6, possibly we could castle knight c6, queen e2, say e6, rook e1, bishop e7 and d4. This could be dangerous for black. This powerful center could really have a very bad effect, especially as a matter of fact that this rook is looking at this queen. That's why I didn't really enjoy all these lines, and what I found best was knight to d7, because now, well, of course, now white is not forced to take the knight, so what he usually does is that he castles. And here we play the move a6. And the squares highlighted in green are the squares that the bishop can move to. Notice that the bishop cannot go to a4 because, of course, he gets kicked with b5 and c4, and now the bishop is trapped. So that would be winning for black. So what usually happens is that, well, on the beginner's level they usually take the knight, but this is exactly what we want as black, because we win the bishop for a knight, which is usually considered quite good, and we're not that much behind in development, and actually our position is reasonably good. For instance, after the move, well, there are two very common moves, well, three I would say. One of them is d4, but it's not a big issue. After you just take it and the knight recaptures, you can play knight f6, put pressure on a pawn, and after knight c3 you can play a move either e6 or e5, really depends on your preparation. But the thing is that, well, after, let's say, you go e5, knight f3, bishop e7, this is a very comfortable Sicilian defense in which you have a bishop pair and your opponent does not, and you shouldn't really have any problems in this position. You just put the rook on the open c file and castle kingside, and you should be very happy with this kind of opening. Now, this is not the usual way white goes about this position. They oftentimes not go d4, but they develop the knight instead. Now it's very tricky now, because now you could be tempted to play bishop c6 to potentially try to hunt down this pawn. But the problem is that bishop c6 should be avoided, because after d4 you will not really feel comfortable taking this, because the knight will be hitting the bishop. I mean, this is not the end of the world, and if you play e5, knight takes bishop, pawn takes knight, it's still a reasonably good position for black, but you've given up your bishop for knight advantage for not a very good reason. Maybe you have the central advantage, but nothing except that really, and if you're trying for a win, you may not want to go for such variations unless you're playing against a better opponent, and of course go right ahead. But what you should aim to play here is the move something missing up. Okay, e5, just to prevent the move e4, and e5 is very strong, and well, white to just develop is nearly forced to play a move like d3, knight f6, bishop g5. Now, of course, the only weakness in your position is the d5 square, which white can take advantage of. But after you play bishop e7, they may simply develop the queen, a castle, take, and they hop in with a knight, saying that, okay, we're going to take this bishop, but it's fine, because you're able to play bishop e6, and now you tell them, okay, you can either capture my bad bishop, and, well, then we simply recapture and we have a reasonably good position. Why is this bishop bad, first of all? Well, it cannot really do a lot so far, because it's blocked by its own pawns, and here, well, the knight is controlling it very well, so this bishop does not really have a bright future right now, and this knight is very strong, so you would be very happy if you could allow for this exchange of knight for a bishop. And of course, with the move bishop to e6, that we play here, we are threatening to take the knight and double the pawns, which is quite obvious. And for instance, if white played a move like c3, then we can comfortably capture the knight, even though this pawn may seem dominant. actually it is not that strong, and this is going to be a permanent weakness, these doubled pawns. So that is about the main line if white plays knight c3. Now let's consider what happens if white plays the plan that I highlighted before in the other lines with the move c3, trying to go for d4. This is similar to like close to Ruy Lopez, if you wish. Similar plan. Here we play knight f6, we hit the pawn, got to be defended with say d3. And here, well, we have a lot of options available. We could here play e6, and this is what I like. I like these Scheveningen structures, or Scheveningen, I don't really know how it's pronounced. Anyways, this structure is very safe because it guards all the weaknesses, possible weaknesses in the center. And after, say, queen e2, simply making, preparing maybe for e5, also making room for the rook to come. We just continue with simple development. So we go bishop e7, they go rook d1, perhaps preparing some d4, castling knight here. This is basically the same strategy as white uses in many closed openings, like in the closed Ruy Lopez. They just want to maneuver their knight, for instance, to g3, and then possibly just from there try to advance the pawn in the center. But you have plenty of time here, and you can play the moves like b5, take a lot of space on the queen side, and also you can put your queen on c7, rook on c8, and basically start some action there on the queen side. That's a reasonably comfortable position, nothing to worry about really. So that's why we shouldn't really be afraid if white takes the knight on d7. This is only to our advantage. And I believe that, well, the position is basically equal with comfortable play. White does not have any major threats. Now it could seem that the move bishop to c4 is good. Well, it attacks the f7 pawn and could potentially have some influence over the center. But the problem is that white wasted some time going to b5, getting kicked with a6 and going to c4. He allows us to give him another kick with b5, which could be exactly what we do. If we play b5, this is one of the common lines. If you like that kind of moves, that's fine. Black can go bishop to d5. Of course, he can go back to e2, but it completely doesn't make sense. It just lets us to get more and more space on the queen side. So let's assume he goes to d5, and then we go rook b8. And we are preparing moves like bishop to b7 or potentially knight f6 to simply round up this bishop. An example line could be knight c3, knight f6, queen e2, and now, well, we don't really want to take this because, well, the knight simply recaptures and it's in a good position, even though, okay, we can play e6, kick it back, this is still pretty good. But what we could also do is to play b4, force the knight, say, to d1, and then comfortably capture the bishop. Of course, there are also some tactical plans with knight b5, but you should not worry about them because you have moves like e6 that are, well, close to winning possibly. Of course, there are some tactics here that you need to watch out for, but I'm just showing you the general plans here. The other idea is simply to play e6 immediately, not to allow the bishop to come to d5, and simply threatening the move b5 as in the previous line, but the bishop then has to retreat. But in this case there is one downside, that white can actually prevent you from playing b5 by playing a4, and this is why usually it is advised that you go b5 first, but this is also a very comfortable way of playing. You can just go knight f6, knight c3, bishop e7, and continue normal Sicilian development. This is actually similar to the Fischer-Sozin attack. Some weak variations of the Fischer-Sozin with even extra tempo for black. So this should perhaps be black is not in any trouble here. Yeah, what else is there? Well, oftentimes white will go to e2 with a bishop, but that yet again is a bit of a waste of a tempo, because in the Oponesky line, so if you study them, the bishop goes to e2 immediately, and you still have to spend your time playing a6, and here you just got this move for free. Of course, maybe your knight is a little misplaced, but it is not a very big of a deal. You can just go knight f6, and well, there are a lot of moves. The strategy normally could involve the move like c3, preparing the move d4, and after that, well, there are many options that you could try. After move c3, preparing d4, well, you could try this strategy yet again with e6, or the strategy with e5. Both are reasonably good, but I personally prefer e6. And then they may play d4. And here, well, you may feel a bit uncomfortable with these two pawns in the middle, but of course, well, not maybe in this case, because their pawn is hanging. So they have to play d3. Sorry, got messed up in the lines. Okay, bishop e7, maybe d2, castles, rook e1. These are like very common maneuvers that occur in these closed positions, like Ruy Lopez's and so forth. And we just act similarly, we just put our pieces in the same positions, controlling the center. All of our pieces are reasonably active, should bring the rooks into the game, and we have a good game with black against this plan. This plan is just too slow in these lines. You're giving us too much time and space on the queen side by moving the bishop 2 times in a row, so to speak, without any sense. So these plans are not dangerous. Also with bishop e2, knight f6, if they don't go for c3, but if they go for knight c3 instead, so they want to go for some rapid development, that's not anything too critical either. You could play a move like e6 again, but yeah, just e6 is best, I believe. And then after d4 takes, knight takes, bishop e7, bishop e3, castles, f4. This is again a typical Scheveningen position. This is the exact same position, but up a tempo for black. Normally in this line, you get exact same position, but the bishop wasted time by moving to b5 and back to e2, which, well, should be considered an advantage to black. Already, I believe black is a lot better in this line. Just after going queen c7, and then maybe for a quick b5, you can just have a fantastic position. So no worries there. And now let's also see what happens if black plays the move d3 maybe. Then we still go for e6, and c3 will usually be played, and then we transpose to the lines I showed before. So just to remind you, bishop e7, knight e2, castles, rook e1, b5, and we go for the normal Sicilian Scheveningen development. Yeah, I think I'm going to make a separate video about the Scheveningen structures because they're important to understand in these openings. But I'm just giving you a general thought about it, that it's a very safe system in which, well, you're in no danger of being, well, annihilated early on. And the last option, but the one that usually is considered best, is the peculiar looking move bishop d3, blocking the d4 pawn. But it aims to go for the same structures as in the closed Ruy Lopez, but an enhanced version of these. You'll soon see how it looks like. So knight f6, we just continue normally. And also you can see that in any of these lines we play similar systems with black. So we just go with these knights like this, e6, bishop e7, b5, queen c7, bishop b7, castles. And this is what we do basically against anything that white plays, unless they deviate and they play some ridiculous looking move or strange move. And of course we should adapt to it, but this is what we usually play in most main lines. Here white plays c3, and well, he's just attempting to go back with the bishop and play d4. This may seem pretty illogical because, well, white is going to make 3 moves with a bishop in the opening already, but he's going to get a reasonably good position with this because his bishop is going to be supporting the e4 pawn, and therefore this d4 break is easier to achieve. Also the bishop, which in the previous lines that I've shown to you, does not does not block the e file, but goes to the c file and protects the e pawn. So it really helps white to gain initiative in the center. Here we play e6 as always, and after bishop to c2 we go bishop e7, getting ready to castle. Now of course they may again try to play fast with d4, and this seems to be strong because if you just take it, white is now able to recapture with c pawn, have this central control here, which, well, you cannot really challenge that easily, and white can really try to claim to be better here, even though you may gain some space on the queen's side and try to put some pressure on the center. It will take some time for you to do that, and white can already try to look for some possible breaks after he brings his rook here, possibly the knight here, and white is in a very comfortable position. That is why you don't really want to take this, because if you take and he recaptures, then he has a good square for this knight. And if the pawn remains on c3, then white needs to do some more work to get this knight into play. He can play knight a3, knight c4, or knight d2, knight f1, knight e3, or knight g3, but that takes a lot more time than just putting it on c3. Now, here I recommend the move castling, and you should not be worried about white taking the c-pawn. Okay, the d file will open, but the pawn structure is somewhat symmetrical, 3 to 3 and 4 to 4. You're in no danger here. There are no central breaks anymore, so you will not get annihilated, and you can just continue with simple development with this queen c7, b5, bishop b7 normal ideas. But of course white may try to be a bit more aggressive and go with queen e2, going for e5 break. Well, they could also try e5 immediately, but then you're really comfortable with, well, you could either take it, but you don't need to. You could also play knight d5, have a nice knight in the center. If they kick it with c4, that's fine, because they are overextending. That may cause some trouble. Already this pawn has to be defended, and yet another pawn has to be moved. And this is in no way a good position for white. So they should rather go with more development, queen e2, and now we go with b5. We try to get some counterplay going. The other moves that could be recommended is queen c7, because, well, it simply may interrupt with the move, may interrupt white playing the move e5, as well as simply moving the queen away from the d file, to which the rook can come and possibly hit the queen. So this is a good developing move. And after that, what can be tried is again this maneuver with knight d2, but then we can play b5, rook d1, bishop b7, and this is a rather common position. And in here, well, white can try to be better since he has a pawn duo in the center, but you have all the development you need to try to fight and contest it. So black is not worse in this position, and this position is certainly playable, and this is the best way of white to play in this bishop b5 lines. So I guess this is all I wanted to show you. I guess this is going to be some pretty helpful advice, not only when it comes to this bishop b5 variation, but also I believe to general principles of the Sicilian defense. I hope you enjoyed it, and more content about the Sicilian defense will come up soon. So if you want to learn some more of it, then wait for the next video, and see you in that one. Bye.